He lost his brother. Then his Norwegian Forest Cat took him to the mountains. His name was Daniel. He was 26 years old, and for his entire life, his older brother Mark had been the person who made every plan feel less frightening than it actually was. The one who tested the water first, in every sense of the phrase. They had grown up sharing a bedroom, then a car, then an apartment when Daniel first moved to the city for work. Always just one phone call apart, no matter how far life pulled them in different directions. Mark died in a climbing accident in July, a route he had done a dozen times before, on a mountain neither of them had ever considered particularly dangerous, one of the routes he always described as routine. Daniel got the call at work and drove straight to the trailhead, though there was nothing left for him to do there except stand at the base and stare upward at the rock face that had taken his brother from him so quickly. The weeks that followed felt physically unbearable in a way Daniel hadn't expected grief to feel. His apartment, his couch, his own bed, all of it felt like a box closing in slightly more each day, the walls somehow narrower every time he noticed them. He couldn't sit still, he couldn't read, couldn't focus on a screen, and couldn't sleep more than a few hours before waking up with his heart pounding for no reason he could name. His cat, a large, long-haired tabby named Freya that Mark had actually helped him pick out from a breeder 2 years earlier, seemed to sense something had changed almost immediately. She started sleeping pressed against his chest instead of at the foot of the bed, waking him gently with a paw against his cheek whenever his breathing turned ragged in his sleep, as though she had appointed herself to some quiet nightly watch. Daniel's mother called every few days, worried in the specific way mothers are after losing one child and watching the other one struggle visibly with the aftermath. "Are you eating?" she would ask. Some, which was technically true, and completely beside the point of what she was actually asking. 3 weeks after the funeral, unable to stand another evening inside his own apartment, Daniel clipped a harness onto Freya, the one Mark had bought as a joke that had somehow become a genuine habit over the past 2 years, and drove 2 hours north to a trailhead by a lake the color of turquoise glass. He hadn't planned anything beyond simply needing to move, needing his body to be somewhere his mind couldn't follow quite so easily. Freya rode against his chest in a sling the entire hike in, her head swiveling at every new sound, clearly unbothered by the unfamiliar terrain in a way that surprised him. When they reached the water's edge, Daniel sat on a rock and let her climb onto his shoulder, and for the first time in 3 weeks, his chest loosened slightly, just enough to notice the difference. If part of you understands what it means to need motion instead of stillness after losing someone, stay with us, because what Freya gave Daniel in the months that followed was something he hadn't realized he was searching for. Grief can trap a person indoors in ways that make no logical sense, and this cat, without any plan at all, kept leading him back outside. That first hike became a pattern neither of them had discussed out loud. Every weekend, sometimes twice, Daniel loaded Freya into her harness and drove somewhere new. A forest trail, a mountain overlook, a frozen lake in the dead of winter that neither of them had any business exploring, though somehow they managed it anyway. Freya adapted to every terrain like she had been born for exactly this. She walked along fallen logs with perfect balance, tail raised high and confident, pausing occasionally to watch birds with an intensity that made Daniel laugh out loud, alone on empty trails for the first time in months, the sound of it echoing strangely in the quiet. His coworkers noticed the change before he mentioned it. "You seem lighter lately," one of them said, watching him scroll through phone photos of Freya perched on a mountain ridge during a lunch break. Daniel hadn't realized how much weight he had been carrying until someone pointed out that some of it had started lifting, slowly, one trail at a time. By winter, they had hiked through 6 different states, Freya perched in her carrier through snow, rain, and blistering summer heat, watching the world with the same calm curiosity every single time, regardless of the conditions around her. Daniel started talking to Mark on these trips, quietly, the way people do when grief softens into something more like conversation than devastation. He told him about the mountains, about places Mark himself had always wanted to see but never gotten around to visiting, filling in the details as though his brother were simply walking a few steps behind him. One evening, camped beside a lake at the edge of a national forest, Daniel sat by a small fire while Freya curled against his side, purring low and steady in the cooling air. He realized, watching the water reflect the last of the sunset, that this was the first time in months he had felt something close to peace instead of just the absence of pain, a distinction he hadn't fully understood until that exact moment. The months that followed brought slow, steady healing neither of them had planned for. Freya learned to recognize the particular sound of Daniel loading the car on Friday afternoons, positioning herself by the door before he had even finished packing, tail flicking with something close to anticipation. She grew more confident with each new trail, more willing to walk instead of ride, exploring further from his side while somehow always circling back at exactly the right moment. Daniel, in turn, learned that grief doesn't require stillness to be honored properly. Sometimes it simply requires movement, a reason to keep walking towards something instead of sitting still with everything that was lost. He still missed Mark every single day, still spoke to him at nearly every summit he reached. But now there was also a warm, striped weight against his chest on every trail, and a set of watchful green eyes that seemed to understand exactly what these mountains had come to mean to both of them. People sometimes ask Daniel why he takes his cat hiking instead of leaving her safely at home the way most people do. He always gives the same quiet answer. "I don't take her. She takes me." I think we were both looking for a reason to keep moving forward, even when everything in us wanted to stop completely. Some cats stay curled on a windowsill their entire lives, content to watch the world pass by from behind glass. Some climb into a hiking pack and simply refuse to let their person stop exploring, sensing exactly when stillness has become something closer to danger than rest. If you have ever lost someone and found yourself unable to sit still with the silence that followed, this gentle reminder that healing doesn't always look like rest. Sometimes it looks like forward motion, one trail at a time. Freya is 5 years old now. She has been to 11 states, 4 national parks, and more mountain summits than Daniel can accurately count without checking his photos first. And Daniel says that some evenings, watching her sleep against his chest by a campfire, he finally understands that carrying grief and carrying joy were never mutually exclusive things. Sometimes you simply learn to carry both at once, one trail at a time. So tell me honestly, do you think our animals somehow know when we need to keep moving instead of standing still? Or is it simply a kindness we choose to believe in? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story of a cat who refused to let grief keep him still stayed with you, wait until you meet Ash, a gray tabby kitten who taught a grieving widow how to be touched gently again. What he did for a woman named Diane, one quiet evening at a time, is next.